We have a Samsung fridge freezer, and on the freezer you can see lots of ice has formed on the bottom. We actually just cleaned this out yesterday, and you can already see there's ice forming again. So I'm going to show you how to fix this. Pretty simple fix, and you can do it yourself. Here are the tools for this video. We used a hair dryer. I had to use an extension cord because I didn't want to be behind the fridge freezer with it. A bowl of some sort that fits underneath, some kind of scraper, a metallic metal tray to collect screws, screwdriver that's a Phillips and a flathead, a pick, at least a towel or two, maybe some cleaning supplies if you have them nearby. I got bad knees, so I do prefer to have something when I'm on my knees, some kind of knee pad that's normally used for gardening but works really well. So the first step will be to remove everything to help lighten up the freezer. I'm going to try to leave most of the stuff in the fridge, so go ahead and unload everything. So this is the goal, is to have everything removed all the way from the top to the bottom. Then we're going to go ahead and pull it out and go ahead and unplug it. So we go ahead and move the fridge out and go ahead and unplug it from the wall. I'm actually going to push the fridge back a little bit so you can see pretty well what I'm doing now. So it will no longer deep or beep, and so that's kind of what you want as we're doing this project. And the next thing we're going to do is come in. Some of them have caps on mine and some of them don't, but there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 either screws or caps, and we're going to take those off next. I'm going to show you real quick what I was talking about. You can see the ice forming here. We're going to scrape all that out later. But that is not good. That means it is not defrosting properly. And behind here is where the drain is. And so that's what we're trying to access. Let's go ahead and get those 6 screws off. So I'm going to go ahead and use a pick to get these ones off. All that is just a little teeny tiny cap. I like to put everything in a metallic metal tray. It won't hold those plastic caps super well, but it will hold the screws. So go ahead and get the second one out. You probably can use a flathead screwdriver as well for this. Then you're going to take your Phillips. And go ahead and start unscrewing. You will hear what sounds like ice. That's kind of normal, because it is kind of frozen over in there. Put that right in your metal tray so you don't lose any of them. There's the second one. And do notice the top 2, at least on my freezer, are silver, and the bottom 4 are white screws. It's probably because the bottom 4 don't have the caps. I have seen where some of the different ones do have caps on all of them. Probably just depends on your model, which my model was at the beginning of this video, if you missed it. This is kind of a tight squeeze if you're a bigger guy or girl. Just so you know, you do have to kind of finagle it in there. You can take the door off, and it's not super hard, but for this project we don't really have to do that. And there's not a ton of room for your hand to unscrew this properly, so just do your best as you're doing it. There's all 6 screws and the 2 covers. Next thing you're going to use is a flathead. And if you come to the top, so with your flathead, come to the top and just start working this out. All this is a big cover. And sometimes, like it is right now, it's a little frozen in there. It'll slowly come out of there. And so set this someplace that it can be set. I'm going to show you what our problem was. Right down at the bottom here, this is totally frozen. You should be able to have water drip down there. So if you can see here, it might be a little hard on the camera. There's a little bit of water that is frozen solid all the way down. So later on in the video, I'll show you we're going to use these, or you can use a flathead, and it just kind of helps collect all that. But the first thing we're going to do, and this does take a few minutes, you're going to want to get a hair dryer. Put it on the hot speed and just hold it over there for quite a long time. And that will begin to melt that down. On the back side, it does have an evaporator. So hopefully it all just kind of goes down and then will evaporate. If you have tons and tons and tons of ice, you are going to want to check that back there to make sure it's not overflowing. But so just off camera, you can't see, I have a big towel, and from time to time, you're gonna wanna stop what you're doing and take that towel, it's just a big old beach towel, and dry up some of that. You can also kind of set it in there if you'd like, and that will just kind of help keep everything where it needs to be. Now, after you don't see any more ice in the top, it's still not going down. So what I'm going to do is just get a little bit of water in the microwave, heat it up for about a minute or two, just a little bit, because you don't want to overwhelm the system below, and just pour that down, and that should help melt the rest of it. Since you have a couple of down seconds while you're heating up the water in the microwave, I would encourage you to go ahead and get some kind of cleaner and go ahead and spray it. This is a great time to clean out your freezer because all the stuff's out of it, all the shells are out of it. This is just a mixture of water and Dawn dish soap. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, what if I just defrosted the entire thing? Yes, you could defrost it, but most of the time you don't have a place excuse me, to store everything, and so just a little bit easier to do it this way. Can get it done in less than a half hour. If you have a really great hair dryer, you might even be able to get done faster. And I will show you how to get the bottom part done last. Once we kind of put most of the stuff back together, it just seems to be a little bit easier. Also, you can do the door, which is out of the camera view, and by then the water should be nice and boiling hot and ready for you to pour down there. So water was boiling hot when I got it out. Do be careful, it is boiling water. And I'm actually going to dry up this area first to where it has the best chance of doing this in one time instead of a couple of times. So take your very, very hot water, pour it down, and hopefully that starts the process of getting inside of the line there. And if that doesn't work, I do have another solution where you can go around back and pull that little plug. I'm hoping that works though. It does look like it's slowly going down, you can see, but not really how I want it to. And there's a couple more bubbles popping up here and there. But it does look like we're going to have to go to the back and pull the drain plug, which is probably a good thing to show you anyways. So we're going to leave that in there, even with the towel in there, to just continue to melt through that as we work on the back side. So we're going to need a Phillips screwdriver again, and the goal is to begin to take off all of these screws back here. We may not have to take all of them off because all we need to do is get into this corner, but at least get started on taking them off. They are much smaller screws. Go ahead and put them inside of your metal holder if you have it. I like to separate them out too, so I just put it right there. That kind of helps me remember where everything goes, but it should be kind of obvious on this one, just for the sole fact of where they the size and the color is quite a bit different. But some repairs, you really got to be careful putting the stuff back in the right location. And this fridge has a cabinet right here, fridge freezer, and so it kind of becomes a little bit more of a bear than a normal one that doesn't have one right next to it, because your angles are a little bit different. I might be able to get away with just that many. Nope. Yeah, I should be able to. So you obviously don't want to bend this, but and it's nice and dusty. back down in here, you're gonna see a white piece, and right there it was. So that right there is what was frozen, and a lot of times what it actually is frozen is inside this white piece. It's supposed to come out, but it doesn't look like this one is. It just gets caught up with gunk. It normally has the ability, there it goes. So it has kind of this weird design. So I'm going to clean that up too before I'm done, because that kind of looks like black mold, which is not good. But this can easily get frozen, so I'm going to clean that up real well. And that's the little black piece as well. That kind of comes right out. Now remember, the hole goes towards the bottom. So you can just take a paper towel. Most of this should come right off of there. I don't really know if it's black mold. I think it's just dirt and gunk. It kind of looked like black mold at first, but I don't think it really was. But yeah, you can go down inside the top too. And because it kind of comes out the other side, try to get in there. If you have a pick, that will work as well. You can get in there and get some of that gunk out. Yeah, it's just dirt crap. But yeah, that pick will really help kind of clean that out. I'm a big fan of these cheap little picks you can pick up almost anywhere. Normally first set of them is less than like $5 or $6, and you get 4 of them. Okay, now remember, this was down towards the bottom. This was towards the top. I was doing it backwards, and it fits in like that. And you saw that big gush of water. That was all of the water that was sitting on the top, and it probably was frozen right down in there where you can barely see. If I open it up, you probably can see some light coming through. But that, I'm guessing, is exactly where it was. You're going to want to put that right back in the same spot. It just slides right back up on top of that. Make sure this black hose, there is a little tab right here. It's kind of hard to see because it's all black. That goes right on top of there. And then you go ahead and put your screws back on, however many you took off. If you took off all of them, again, that's totally fine. That's up to you. The bottom has little latches. You do want to make sure those are latched back in correctly as you're putting this back together. And you saw it just kind of latched on both of those spots. Pretty easy. Just kind of up and down action is all you need to do. This is sheet metal, so you don't have to like overkill it with how much force you put on it. It doesn't take a whole lot. And just nice and snug, nothing super hard. You don't want to strip anything. That's the last thing you want to do, is have to buy extra parts. I believe there was one there. It's kind of hard to see with the camera in the way. I know there's one there. I think the last one goes right here. So that's what it should look like. Those are the screws that I took off. You do want to make sure you're not kinking any of this stuff. This is your water hose. I ended up putting an extra long one on because of the cabinet that's right over here. It does help. Also, if any of this stuff kind of came off from where you think it was supposed to go, like this, beautiful piece of tape, Samsung, thank you for that. And we're gonna go clean up the front side, and we're just about done. Actually, before we go to the front side, do not forget to clean up the area, that little bit of water spilt. This is luxurious vinyl planking, which I absolutely hate now that I've installed it throughout most of my house because it does not do what it says. It's supposed to be 100% waterproof. It is 100% not waterproof because if there's even the slightest little crack, water can go down in it. So that's just a tip. Don't like that stuff, but that's just my opinion. Now that you're cleaned up on the back side, we can go ahead and push this back and get started on the front. So you're going to be careful pushing it back, especially if you have cabinets and stuff like that and a wall. If you do it right, you also want to make sure you do have a cord that your cord is out of the way. So when you need to plug it back in a few minutes. And if you're like me with this space, leave enough room that you can still reach the cord back in at the end. So now that we're back here, get you nice and close so you can see what we're kind of doing to finalize the cleanup. So you can see all of that water went through, which is exactly what we wanted. I am still going to take a towel and just touch dry that. Then take this towel, the big one you had down in there, and just lay it at the foot here, because there is still ice here. So a couple ways we could do this. What we were doing for a couple of days before I had time to actually fix all this is my wife came in with a little, I think it was about a 2-3 inch chisel, and just did that. And then we had this beautiful little bowl that we put on the end and just slid everything down in it, which works pretty well. Probably works a little better now that it is a little hotter in here due to the fact of everything we just did with. So that is it for that. We're going to go ahead and put back on the covers and put everything back in. And so you're going to grab your cover and make sure it's oriented in the correct direction. I did not clean this yet, so I'm going to clean it. Sorry, it's off camera. I'm going to just wipe it down before we put it back in because I cleaned everything else off. You're going to orient it the same direction. And then it kind of lightly snaps in, not like a true snap in, but it does kind of want to be seated how it was. And then we remember the 2 silver screws were on top with the white caps. Those are honestly the easier screw to put in. So remember the silver screws with the white caps go on the top. You just screw those in. This is mostly plastic and a little bit of sheet metal. Please do not over screw these and tighten them and strip anything. Not worth it if you ever have to do this again. You put the 2 caps on. And you move down to the next 2, which are white. Tipped, not tipped, end. I really do like this screwdriver. It has a really good metal tip on the end. There will be a link in the description. They're not the cheapest, they're not Craftsman, it's a Klein, but I really, really like them for a lot of different projects. And if you're working with electric, they work super well. I think that's what I like best about them. And then we have those last 2. This one's the hardest. These 2 are the hardest for me, being right-handed and hitting my hand against this the whole time. Sure, lefties probably experience the same thing, but it's just not the easiest to screw these bottom 2 in. And then you just put all of your stuff back in the freezer. Please like and subscribe if this was helpful to you. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a great day.